all of us worked in the field from the beginning time, but Reba and Amy and brother and all of us worked in the fields. We grew up big enough, and Reba hoed and picked cotton and did things like that. Amy did too, and Amy did some plowing. She did quite a bit of plowing, just with the cultivator.
This was up in Denton County.
Yeah, that's where we grew up. And that's after brother went to the war, and after he went off to college. Papa had to have somebody to help him. And out in that day and time, there weren't any. You didn't have people to hire like we do now.
Had to have hands.
You had to have
children.
Some hands if somebody in the community could turn loose, or something on the glasses.
There you go.
Oh, I didn't know that was over there. So Amy would plow, fill in, and so then of course she went off. Left Papa without anybody.
About 1918, she went off.
And so let's see. She graduated high school, I think, 20 or 19 or 20, and she took her last year in Denton, high school in Denton. Because, as I told you, Mama, she had to go extra year to get her credits to go to college, because Prosper wasn't accredited.
How did she get to Denton and back from Prosper?
She went over and stayed. She and Winnie McReynolds.
Oh, I see.
She and Winnie was in our community, or Winnie was in our community. All their girls went over and stayed.
Why didn't you go to Denton instead to North Texas instead of Wesley College? Because of church school?
It's church school. It was cheaper.
What was cheaper than the state college?
And I could work my way through. You couldn't work your way through in the state schools.
I see.
And so anyway.
How times have changed.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I said that glibly because I don't really know. But anyway, Brother Bowen was our pastor, and he wanted us to go to state school, and Mama did too. I mean, church school. And so anyway, she would have had to go anyway to get her credits to go even to Wesley. So that's the reason Mama sent me to Frisco that year, year and a half, to get my credits from the credit school. And so that left Papa without anybody to help him. And when she went to college, so
you started in 20 and
I started working. I started running an elevator. Elevator. The cultivator. And I did that. I worked. Well, of course, before that, I had helped in the field when we gather corn. The way they did, would put the team across 2 rows, and the wagon would run over one. I guess it's 1 row, and the wagon would run over 1 row. Then somebody would be on each side, and we'd to pick a row here and one over here. And so they put when the wagon ran over, it did knock it down, Well, they put me on the down rows because I was short, and I could stoop down and get the corn, pick the corn off, and then we pitch it up in the wagon. And then these people, they probably take 2 rows and pitch it up, grown people. And so I did that till I guess after Amy left. And then, of course, I hoed. I started working in the field when I was about 8, 9 years old, picking cotton, putting in somebody else's sack, and Mom would make a little short sack for me, and I'd pick cotton that way. And I'd go out. And I never could do much hoeing because I couldn't handle the big hoes. But then, after Amy left, I started plowing, and I plowed, and then I planted cotton, and then when cotton season was over, I cut the stalks. I cut the corn stalks, and way we did with the thrashing. Well, first place, I started shocking corn, shocking grain, wheat and oats, and so I shocked Charlie, Laura, and Rankin, and I shocked one whole big crop of wheat as the year the war was over, and it rained so much that it began to mold. So Papa talked around and found out that what some people were doing was putting a team to a wagon, but spreading them out, and let the tongues of the wagon. This wagon he had a stiff tongue, and they'd widen the team out, and they'd run down the row, go down the row, and that tongue would go right into the shock and knock the bundles down. So he did all that, and then we had to go back and shock it again, and we did that. So I shocked wheat and oats, and the rest of the time I was at home. And then I would help to, as I say, I'd plant corn, plant cotton, and hoe, and then Thrasher came along. He didn't have anybody to haul the wheat, so I'd go, and as they get a wagon of wheat full, a wagon full of wheat or oats, whichever, why, I'd drive it back to the barn. Then cotton season came along, and he would have a lot of pickers. Maybe sometimes he'd have a lot of pickers that pick a bale a day, and he'd have 2 bales to take at one time. So I'd take I'd drive one of the wagons to the gin. That's 5 miles, and then wait till it's baled, and then I'd drive the wagon.
You know what Daddy told me?
Mm-hmm.
He told me that he was so strong, but by the time he was 18, 19, 20, he could load a bale of cotton in a wagon by himself. By leaning it,
Yeah,
working
just
it. No, I don't mean he lifted it, but by working he could load it in by himself.
I can understand that. So I continued to work until I went to Wesley College, and I did everything in the world to do in the field, I guess, except drive 4-member team. Papa never did put me on a binder or anything like that, where I had or sulky, where he had 14.
What was the hardest work you did? Hoeing cotton?
Oh, I don't know.
Daddy said the hardest work he did was when the thrasher came.
Well, that's.
I don't know what he did about it, but.
Well, he did what I did what he did. You know, you have to. What he did was he he helped Papa too. He'd go haul the wheat to the tractor. To the thrasher. You know, pitch it up where they have to pitch it up on the wagon, and then they'd haul it to the thrasher. That's pretty hard work, but I did that too. It didn't happen to be to a thrasher. One year, Papa decided that he'd put up his whole old crop in the barn, in shock. I mean, in bundle, and it was a heavy. That's the reason he decided to do it, because it's such a heavy crop. It was just a real crop, and he and I did it. He had his wagon fixed with the thing level place all around it, you know, like they do, like the hay wagons we used to call. And he didn't have a hay wagon, but he built his own frame to put on it. And so I would get, and you know, you have to put those bundles on a certain way, or else it'll topple off. So I would pitch it up. I took a pitchfork and I'd pitch those bundles up on that wagon. And then he would place them until he got it up so high I couldn't pitch them up. And he'd get it started to where it wouldn't. You have to do it, you know, you probably understand it. Put the out and then the next one just a little bit farther, you know, up like that, so it can tumble off. And it's quite an art to it. Well, I would pitch him up until he got that started good, and it'd be as high as I could pitch. And then he'd get on the ground and pitch, and I would put him up until we got through with it, got it up high enough. Then we'd go to the barn, and the opening to the loft was up, you know, on the second floor, you might say. And I would pitch him up into that barn, and then he would get his stack around the barn like he wanted it, so he could fit it all in. And then when I got so low down I couldn't pitch it up in there. Well, then he'd get in the wagon and pitch it in, and I would place them around like that. And so we did big crop.
Aunt Laura wasn't old enough then.
Oh no.
So we're talking about the teens during World War One, around in there, and right after.
Along the latter part of the teens.
Because you went to college in 23.
Mm-hmm. And so we put up that crop, and then I would haul wheat from the thresher down to the barn when he pitch it in and he'd pitch it in the granary. And then the same way with oats. We do oats that way. Sometimes we have oats enough to pitch in there. I mean, to put up like that. And I'd shuck corn by the day. And when we put it in, put the corn, when we'd have to shuck corn, corn.
Was Grandpa a good farmer?
Well, I thought he was. He
worked hard.
Worked awful hard. But he, as I say, he had to do so much out of himself. It was pretty hard on him.
Yeah.
But I did all that. It came out all right, I guess.
Probably the reason you're strong. One of the reasons.
I told kids out yonder, I said, I never did regret it. I don't remember of fussing about it. I don't think I ever fussed about it. I don't remember it if I did. And I said, now I'm glad I did, because I think that helped me to have good strong bones and back and all that kind of stuff. And
yeah.
I cut the cotton stalks on Saturdays after we started school, and I had all the cotton picked. I'd always cut stalks on Saturday. Run a stalk cutter.
Tell me a little bit about the life during World War One. What was the spirit of things while boys were gone?
Oh, we were all so sad, you know, and we had to work. We had to do without a lot of things. We had to ration our food, and that not to the point of hurting us anyway.
You all raised most of yours anyway.
We raised so much of it, and by that time, Mama had learned to can. You know, she learned to can at on that government deal that Aunt Laura worked with, and she learned to can. And
then when she bought the big canner.
Then she bought a big canner. Yeah. And when the first summer, I believe it was, the first summer I was after I went to college, I came home long in July. I went to first semester school that summer to get off in French or something. And I came home and I said, Mom, I want you to have a vacation. I said, you go out to see Grandpa. You and Rankin and Laura go out to see Grandpa. And I'll stay at home and do the canning while you're gone. And I did. She finally conceded. And I did, and I canned 100 cans of corn. And I don't know how many beans and things. I just remember the amount of the corn, of course it's so big. But, anyway, I canned 100 cans of corn and put up the beans, peas, and all that kind of stuff while she was gone. And those canners were just, that was one of the most wonderful programs I had, to teach women to do that. And the fact that canners came out, you know, people tried to can, and some did successfully can before, like canning corn, but it was so often spoiled. It just had to be done a certain way, and you had to have the temperature just exactly right and everything. But with the canners, it was just all kind of automatic. Well, I mean, you just set everything, and it worked. So that was a wonderful program, because we just could eat the corn, what we could eat. We couldn't preserve it anyway. And the same way with tomatoes and things like that. We could can tomatoes. That's one thing we could can. But the corn was one of the main things that we couldn't keep if we tried to can it like tomatoes or something like that. So I did my hard work anyway.
You know, I used to run that canner.
Yeah. Oh, after I married, I bought one, and when I moved to Greenville, and I canned everything. And I got a small canner when I moved to, when I moved to Greenville to over that new house, different house. And I just canned everything. I canned carrots and all that stuff, but I learned better. It was better not to can carrots, because they were better raw, and they were so good for you raw.
Yeah.
So I curtailed my canning. I can beans. I can beans now. Green beans, if I can get them at a reasonable price.
Let me ask you some things about Mother and Daddy. Daddy came out of the Army, and but I mean, Daddy went into the Army, and Mother had a nervous breakdown.
Well, I didn't know that. Oh, I think I heard something about that.
You don't know all about that story?
Mm-mm.
Well,
You mean when he went into the army?
uh-huh.
No.
And she started teaching she took a job and stayed there about 2 months, and she just
I
lost
think I
her,
knew she was sick. I didn't know
just lost
if I knew about it. I
her
didn't think about
mind, really. Just, you know, as she used to say it, I lost my mind.
it.
You
Yeah.
know, I lost my mind. And she never did tell me much about it. She wouldn't tell me. She never did tell me much about it. And then Daddy, back in the early '80s, I questioned him about it. He told me the whole story. I just wondered if I'd get your side of it, but you don't know anything about it.
I didn't know anything about the fact that she was sick. That I knew she's always sickly, but I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah,
I mean, any details about
she
it.
was sickly all of her life.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. Uh,
She was better health after she had her babies than she ever was before.
yeah. She.
Well, she had a very peculiar temperament.
What do you mean by that?
Well, she was, kind of helpless and kind of passive uh, and dependent. Tended to depend on somebody all the time,
Yeah.
And she couldn't surmount difficulty too well.
Yeah. One of the worst times in my life with her was right after we moved to Greenville. When Daddy left, but she was going through the menopause,
Mm-hmm.
and she was just.
Well, of course, it's worse then.
Yeah. And she was just, she just cried all the time and worried all the time. Of course, she was very open. Our family has always been very open and shared all of our problems.
Oh, that's good.
You see, in other words, I knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
See, Sue knew what was going on. Well, Bob knew what was going on, but the discussions were public domain.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't something that she and Daddy talked about behind closed doors. That's good and it's bad, I guess. I don't know. Money was always the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Money was spoken when we had money problems, which seemed like a lot of the time.
Yeah, they did. Bless hearts.
Neither one of them learned how to manage money. Never learned how to manage money.
I used to get. I would get upset at brother because when they didn't have money to buy an apple, he wouldn't go out and work.
Yeah, I know it.
At what he could do,
That's right.
Anything he could do.
That's right.
And it worried me to death. And then he'd sit around and talk about no money, I had no money and so forth. And I said, why don't you go out and pick some cotton? Oh, I'm not going to go pick cotton, he'd say, And yet somebody was paying his way.
Yeah.
And I'd get so frustrated with him because he took that attitude. And I was just always the opposite. I'd go dig a ditch or something rather than to sit around like that,
Well,
and
in 1950, 49 and 50, well, see, the string of government jobs ran out that he'd been writing since 1938. They cut out all those programs. There weren't any veterans programs anymore. That had all been solved. Most of the GIs were already finished school, so he takes this job up at Maud, up here, in that trade school or something like that, and he's up there and he's away from mother again, and then he totally gets out of a job until he gets the shepherd job. See, but he was out of a job for a year and a half.
Yeah, I know it.
And go into debt.
And then he'd take all of his next pay if he got a job.
The next 5 years to pay for it. See, and I kept saying, I remember Mother would say, why don't you just take a teaching job?
Yeah.
You know, he could get a teaching job anywhere around
Yeah.
there. You know, and no, he wasn't going to do that.
No, he
I
wasn't.
remember that. He wasn't going to do that. He told me, he says, I'm not taking a job in the film station. And I always thought, why don't you just take this job at the film station so you can get a job that's
That's
in keeping with what you
That's what
want to
I'd
do?
say to him too.
And he would never do it. And I suppose that went on all his life. You're saying?
Yeah, he would. When let's see, where was it? Uh, I asked him one day. I said, people were just crying for people and farmers were crying for people to come pick cotton. Why don't you go out and pick some cotton? Oh, well, I'm not going to pick cotton.
When was this?
Well, it's back in that same general period, you know, when you all were little and you're having babies and staying with Ms. McCannon and with us and so forth and so on. And well, no, he wasn't going to pick cotton. Well, Lord mercy. There was no dead
We see this was
degrading
was
and picking cotton.
This was opposite from what he would tell us. He said, honest, he would always say, a job is as long as it's an honest job, it's good work, and it makes money for you. For you. And see, when he
but
wasn't
he
going to do
didn't
it.
practice
See,
it.
I found that out later on. See, that kind of was one of the problems that I had with him. You know, I couldn't understand why he had to go from all of those 6 months
and
between jobs.
He wasn't reared that way, you know. Yeah. He was reared to work.
Yeah, and you know, I thought, just go out and get a job. You know, I don't understand why that I could go out and get a job. I was 18, 17, 18, and I could go out and get a job. Mm-hmm. I'd come home and I'd get me a job in the summer. You know, yeah. I'd do something like that. You know, and then or I've done that all my life. When we were going to school in Indiana, you know, I'd get a job cleaning apartments. Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, I had a bachelor's degree just like he did, but I was in there scrubbing bathrooms and ovens. And
that's what I was doing. When I had that first year, started out that first year at Wesley, I was washing bathtubs and showers and toilets and everything else.
There isn't anything wrong with it.
And then I'd mop that floor.
But I liked, I never. All of that had an effect on me. Mm-hmm. You know, and I said, I'm never going to be without money. I'm not ever going to be without money. And see, Annie Mary can't understand that in me. I don't go to town. If I get up and get in my car and go to town, I'm not going to be without money. Mm-hmm. I mean, I won't go if I.
That's what your grandpa.
Yeah.
Grandpa said one time, always have money in your pocket. You won't be broke.
That's right. I don't.
And he practiced it.
See, I always tried to. You mean Grandpa Jones?
No, Grandpa Taylor.
Oh, I see. Well, see, I said, I always say, I don't want anybody doing anything for me. Mm-hmm. I can do everything for myself, and I have, and it just worries me to death when I can't.
I never had that attitude because I know that very often a person can say a word or two and help you get what you want. That's what Mr. Taylor did when I went over there somewhere or other.